first, let's turn our attention to this story about revenge porn. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's basically topless or nude photographs and videos uploaded to websites which are specifically set up. Often these images are uploaded by disgruntled exes or indeed hackers. And this is where the issue becomes very murky indeed. Let's bring in Kayla Laws, who is a victim herself of revenge porn. And also on the line is Dr. Charlotte Laws, who's an advocate for victims of revenge porn in LA and is also Kayla's mum. Welcome both of you to World Have Your Say. And Kayla, first of all, tell me what happened to you.
Well, I was taking some photos in my room, never for anyone to see. I was kind of just looking in the mirror, and I took over 100 photos, and I was going through them on my phone after I was done, and I decided to keep a few, and I deleted some, and the ones that I ended up keeping, I didn't want to keep on my cell phone because, you know, someone could potentially get a hold of my cell phone, and I didn't want them to see those photos, so I decided to just email them to myself and save them in a folder in my email. And I saved them in a folder called My Pics, which made it a lot easier when I did get hacked for the hacker to easily find my photos. So that's what happened, and I got hacked.
So Kayla, just take me back to when you said you took around 100 photos. Give us a flavour of what the photos were like.
I mean, I was just like in different poses, trying to look sexy. I really kind of take photos of myself because I'm very big into fitness, and I like to keep track of how my body looks in the mirror. So I was holding the cell phone up, kind of taking pictures through the mirror, and I did. Most of them were not nude, and then I ended up getting so comfortable that I just decided to take some that were topless, and I wanted to see, you know, how I looked in that sense. These were the first photos I had ever taken of myself in this type of, in this sense. So the fact that they went out on the internet, like, after I had taken my first photos was just, like, it's horrible.
So just explain, you said you deleted a lot of them. You kept some photos, presumably topless photos, as well as the other photos. Why did you decide to keep those? Why didn't you delete all of them?
I thought I looked good in them. I was proud of the way I looked, and I keep a lot of photos just to refer back to in the future. The way that, you know, many women go up and down in weight, and I'm very, I focus very much on trying to maintain my body, and so I wanted them to refer back to.
And so these pictures you were hacked, they were put up on a website.
Correct.
I just, yeah. Who told you? How did you find out?
Well, I was at work. I was a server at the time, and I got a phone call. Actually, I got the phone of my restaurant handed to me, and because obviously I was working, so I couldn't answer my cell phone. So I was called on the restaurant phone by someone who actually worked at the restaurant, but who was not working that night, and she was a friend of mine. And she said, "Kayla, this is really important. I need to talk to you. Can you please, you know, step outside for a moment?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm with a bunch of tables right now." And she's like, "This is really important. You need to hear this. I have something important to tell you." So I was like, "Okay, just give me a minute." I put her on hold. I finished up my tables and I went outside. And then she said, I said, "Okay, what's up?" And she was like, "I'm really, really sorry to tell you this, but you're on this website, and I've had a friend that's been on this website too, and the guy that puts these photos up is really mean, and he refuses to take down photos, and I'm really, really sorry." She just kept being really, really sorry to me, and I was really confused because I didn't remember. It was a little while ago that I had taken the photos. I didn't even know what she was talking about initially. So I went on and I looked for what photo it was. She said it was on like the front page of the website. And so I saw it. And then I decided to call my mom, and I was freaking out. And I was like, Mom, really bad happened. And of course, every time I say that, it's usually like a car accident or something like really bad, you know? I mean, but this was really, really bad to me. And she was like, oh, Kayla, what is it? And so I told her the website. She went online to look at it. And
that's just the worst thing, isn't it, Kayla? As a mum, the worst words you can hear is, Mum, something terrible's happened. That's awful.
Yes, exactly.
And your heart jumps. But then also, how embarrassing and how mortifying for you that your mum then sees that. Charlotte, do come in. This is just horrendous situation for you as well.
It was horrible. And, I'd never heard of revenge porn until she told me about it that day. And she was right. It was virtually impossible to get that picture removed. We sent a takedown notice to the website operator. He still didn't remove the photo. And I ended up contacting everybody you can imagine, from his attorney to his publicist to his mom's old workplace to his hosting company, his ISP, trying everything I could to get the photo down. And during that time, I realized that, Kayla had been hacked, but there was another one of her friends who got hacked at the same time by the same hacker. And that's when I realized, this is not really revenge porn in the traditional sense of the angry ex. This is actually has to do with hacking. And I became very curious as to how many of the photos had been hacked. And so I started calling victims all over the country who were featured on that website to find out how they got on there. And I found out that 40% had been hacked, 12% had been photoshopped. So it wasn't, they had never even taken a topless or nude picture. It was their headshot that was put with a nude body, and their reputation was being ruined. And so I was kind of immersed into this entire horrible underground world of revenge porn. Our whole family was. And
something, as you said before, something you were totally unaware of. Let's bring in Mark Oxley-Rice, who is the international editor at The Guardian. Mark, what's your take on this? It's a pretty hideous story.
Well, firstly, my sympathy goes out to Kayla and her mum. I mean, it's a dreadful thing. I think we should stand back a little and just think, every time we create data on ourselves, even if we think we're going to retain it and nobody else is ever going to see it or read it, the problem with data is that it leaks. The problem with the internet, as we found out this year through all the stories about our spy agencies, is that we're not in control of it anymore. And so what I think it means, unfortunately, for people like Kayla, I'm sure she feels she's learned her lesson, but for millions of other young people out there, it's just don't create the data in the first place.
Blaming the victim, and I actually don't subscribe to that view. You can obviously be morphed or photoshopped, and so you can never have taken a nude picture, and you can still end up on a revenge porn website, and your photo can still be sent to your job and to your family. So I think the only real solution is legislation, and I'm very encouraged that so many states in the United States have proposed bills. We already have a law in California and in New Jersey, and I've been talking to Barbara Boxer's office about a federal law. Canada has brought something forward, and I just think that, I'm really, really happy about the fact that so many politicians are now looking at the issue and seeing how they can protect victims.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to blame the victim, and I think that there's a very strong case for legislation here, and I think that California and New Jersey, I think, have already pressed ahead, because clearly photoshopping people and putting their images out on the internet for everyone to see is a blatant infringement of rights. All I was saying was that not just with photos, but with everything we create about ourselves, and we live in a culture now where everything is shareable, and we share so much, and I'm concerned that we share too much. And, I have children, I'm very careful about putting their images anywhere near the internet. A lot of people would disagree with me and would put their family snaps on Facebook. Well, I just think once it's on Facebook, once it's on Twitter, it's out there, and good people will be able to see it, but bad people, if they really want to, will be able to manipulate it.
Well, the social networking is not, there's no laws on social networking right now, and it's really just like a free-for-all. It's kind of out of control, and there needs to be legislation for that. It's been untapped. And so what my mom is trying to do is for something like Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, if things like these kind of pictures do get leaked, let's say onto Facebook. I even had a friend who had one of her nude photos leaked onto Facebook. Something like that, that's where we do need legislation for this whole new internet social networking world that has come about to be so prevalent in this day.
I think you raise a very good point. But I think that the big internet companies have been very happy to take our data and to make viable businesses out of our data. I think it's also perfectly clear they'd be ruined if the onus was going to fall onto them to scrutinise every single bit of data and work out if it was tasteful and if it was moral and if it had reached some kind of ethical code. And that, I think, is the problem that policymakers and lawmakers will face. Not in this case. I think that Kayla, as your mum says, I think that for websites that host revenge porn, I think that lawmakers will intervene and these people will be prosecuted. But
yeah, I think you can make an exception with the First Amendment for revenge porn, non-consensual pornography, just like you have an exception for child pornography or obscenity or libel or discrimination. And also what free speech is about, it's about the marketplace of ideas. It's about discussing things, public ideas. But nude pictures of individual people is a private issue, so it's completely different. And the Supreme Court has ruled that the First Amendment should be applied less stringently when it comes to private issues. So I don't think that nude and topless pictures is really an issue as far as legislation goes. I think it does become an issue if you start talking about other types of speech out there on the internet.
Mark, do you want to pick up?
I have to go now.
When you start talking about the First Amendment, I sort of salute you because we don't have one of those over here in the UK, and it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, yeah, a First Amendment, will protect a lot of people from publishing a lot of things that might cause offence to a lot of people. On the other hand, just at the moment in the UK, when we're taking on this very issue of our data and what the state knows about us and what the states have been gathering about us, our very right to publish is being challenged and questioned. But I know that's a separate issue, so I won't go on too much about that.
Well, Mark, I know you have to leave us as well, so Mark Oxley-Rice, thank you so much for joining us, international editor at The Guardian. Thank you also to Dr. Charlotte Laws, who's had to leave us, and also to Kayla Laws, her daughter, who's a victim of revenge porn.